Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We are going to keep reading A Swiftly Tilting Planet by Madeline L'Engle. The last time that we read, Charles Wallace was within Brandon Locke, and Brandon's sister-in-law was accused of being a witch, and with the help of the rune, he was able to save her. We're going to pick back up with Chapter 7, The Winds with Their Swiftness. And Charles Wallace was on Gaudior's back. I've read about the Salem trials, of course, he mused aloud. Is there... Oh, Gaudior, do other planets have the same kind of horrors as ours? There are horrors wherever the Ecthroi go. Brandon, he's younger than I, and yet, am I like Brandon, or is he like me? I do not think you would be accepted by a host who is alien to what you are, Gaudior, for instance. I hate to think I caused Brandon so much pain. Do not take too much on yourself, Gaudior warned. We don't know what would have happened had you not been within Brandon. What did we learn within? It's a strange triangle. Wales and here, Wales and Vespugia and here. It's all interconnected. We have to find the connections. Oh! He stepped back from Gaudior with a startled flash of comprehension. What now? Gaudior asked. Charles Wallace's voice rose with excitement. When Madoc is spelled the Welsh way, it's Madog. Get it? Gaudior blew a small bubble. Madog. Mad dog. It's a play on words. Mad Dog Branzillo may really be Madog. El Rabioso, Mad Dog. It's a ghastly sort of pun. Madoc, Madog, Mad Dog. The unicorn looked down his long nose. You may have something there. So that's another connection. Gaudior, we have to go to Patagonia, to Vespugia. I understand it isn't easy for unicorns to move in both time and space, but you've got to try. Gaudior raised his wings and stretched them up toward the sky. The last time we gave explicit directions to the wind, look what happened. We didn't get to 1865, but we did learn important things about Madoc's descendants. Is that all you remember? The unicorn folded his wings. It's in the book. Matthew Maddox's is... Somehow or other, Gaudior said, we are blundering closer and closer to the might have been, which the Ecthroi don't want us to get to. And the closer we get, the more they will try to prevent us. Already you have changed small things, and they are angry. What have I changed? Don't you know? Charles Wallace bowed his head. I tried to stop Harsels from seeing the ways of other men. And? Zell, I tried to stop them from hanging her. Would she have been hanged without the rune? There are many things unicorns do not feel they need to know. And there are some things we do need to know if we're going to succeed in doing what Mrs. O'Keefe asked me to do. For a moment, he looked startled, remembering Calvin's mother. How strange that it should have come from Mrs. O'Keefe, the charge and the rune. That should teach you something. It does. It teaches me we have to go to Vespugia to find the connection between Mom O'Keefe and Mad Dog Branzillo. The light in Gaudior's horn flickered rapidly. I know, Charles Wallace stroked the unicorn's neck. The Ecthroi nearly got us when we were aiming for 1865 in our own where. Perhaps we have to leave the star-watching rock and aim for 1865 in Patagonia, when the Welsh group arrive there. Perhaps they meet Gaudior's descendants. I think we have no choice now, except to go to Patagonia. They may attack us again, Gaudior's anxious neigh broke into silver shards. It might be a good idea for you to tie yourself to me. If the Ecthroi tear you from my back again, it isn't likely I'd be able to catch you a second time. Charles Wallace looked all around him, carefully, and saw nothing but the woods, the rock, the valley, the mountains beyond. Then, I know. He slid off Gaudior's back to the rock. I forgot to bring in the hammock this summer. Meg usually does it. It's just a few yards along the path, between two old apple trees. It's a woven rope one, and it's hung on good stout laundry rope from Mortman's general store. Mortman! Gaudior, do you suppose... We don't have time for suppositions, Gaudior warned. Bind yourself to me. Charles Wallace hurried along the path, with the unicorn following, prancing delicately as bare blackberry canes reached across the path and tore at his silver hide. Here we are. Mother likes the hammock to be far away from the house, so she can't possibly hear the telephone. He started untying one end of the hammock. The branches of the apple trees were bare of leaves, but a few withered apples still clung palely to the topmost branches. The earth around the trees and under the hammock smelled of cider vinegar and mulching leaves. Make haste slowly, Gaudior advised, as Charles Wallace's trembling fingers fumbled with the knots. The air was cold, and the unicorn bent his neck so he could breathe on Charles Wallace's fingers to warm them. Think only about untying the knots. The Ecthroi are near. Warmed by the unicorn's breath, the boy's fingers began to lose their stiffness, and he managed to untie the first knot. 2 more knots, and one end of the hammock dropped to the leafy ground, and Charles Wallace moved to the second tree, where the hammock seemed even more firmly secured to the gnarled trunk. He worked in silence until the hammock was freed. Kneel, he told the unicorn. Charles Wallace dragged one end of the hammock under the unicorn, so the heavy webbing was under Gaudior's great abdomen. With difficulty, he managed to fling the rope up over Gaudior's flanks. He clambered up and bound the rope securely around his waist. It's a good thing Mother always uses enough rope for 5 hammocks. Gaudior whickered. Are you tied on securely? I think so. The twins taught me to make knots. Hold on to my mane, too. I am. I don't like this, Gaudior objected. Are you sure you think we ought to try to go to Patagonia? I think it's what we have to do. I'm worried. But Gaudior began to run, until he had gathered enough speed to launch himself. The attack came almost immediately. Ecthroi surrounding boy and unicorn. Charles Wallace's hands were torn from Gaudior's mane, but the rope held firm. The breath was buffeted out of him, and his eyelids were sealed tight against his eyes by the blasting wind, but the Ecthroi did not succeed in pulling him off Gaudior's back. The rope strained and groaned, but the knots held. Gaudior's breath came in silver streamers. He had folded his wings into his flanks to prevent the Ecthroid wind from breaking them. Boy and unicorn were flung through endless time and space. A cold, stretching wind picked them up, and they were flung downward with a violence over which the unicorn had no control. Helplessly, they descended toward a vast darkness. They crashed. They hit with such impact, Charles Wallace thought fleetingly, just before he lost consciousness, that the Ecthroi had flung them onto a rock, and this was the end. But the descent continued. Down, down, into blackness and cold, no breath, a feeling of strangling, a wild ringing in the ears. Then he seemed to be rising, up, and light hit his closed eyes with the force of a blow, and clear, cold air rushed into his lungs. He opened his eyes. It was water, and not rock they had been thrown against. Gaudior, he cried, but the unicorn floated limply on the surface of the darkness, half on his side, so one of Charles Wallace's legs were still in the water. The boy bent over the great neck. No breath came from the silver nostrils. There was no rise and fall of chest, no beat of heart. Gaudior, he cried in anguish, don't be dead, Gaudior! Still, the unicorn floated limply, and small waves splashed over his face. Gaudior! With all his strength, Charles Wallace beat against the motionless body. The rune, he thought wildly, the rune! But no words came except the unicorn's name. Gaudior! Gaudior! A trembling stirred the silver body, and then Gaudior's breath came roaring out of him like an organ with all the stops pulled out. Charles Wallace sobbed with relief. Then the unicorn opened his eyes, which at first were glazed, then cleared and shone like diamonds. He began to tread water. Where are we? Charles Wallace bent over the beautiful body, stroking neck and mane in an ecstasy of relief. In the middle of an ocean. Which ocean? Gaudior asked testily. I don't know. It's your planet. You're supposed to know. Is it my planet? Charles Wallace asked. The Ecthroi had us. Are you sure we aren't in a projection? Unicorn and boy looked around. The water stretched to the horizon on all sides. Above them, the sky was clear with a few small clouds. It's not a projection, Gaudior whickered, but we could be anywhere in creation, on any planet, in any galaxy which has air with oxygen and plenty of water. Does this seem to you like an ordinary Earth ocean? He shook his head, and water sprayed out from his mane. I'm not thinking clearly yet. He gulped air, then regurgitated a large quantity of salt water. I have drunk half this ocean. It looks like a regular ocean, Charles Wallace said tentatively, and it feels like winter. His drenched anorak clung to his body in wet folds. His boots were full of water, which sloshed icily against his feet. Look, he pointed ahead of them to a large crag of ice protruding from the water. An iceberg. Which direction is land? Gaudior, if we don't even know what galaxy or planet we're on, how do you expect me to know where land is? With difficulty, Gaudior stretched his wings to their fullest extent, so they shed water in great falls that splashed noisily against the waves. His legs churned with a mighty effort to keep afloat. Can you fly? Charles Wallace asked. My wings are waterlogged. Can't you ask the wind where we are? A shudder rippled across the unicorn's flanks. I'm still half-winded. The wind. The wind. We hit water so hard, it's a wonder all our bones aren't broken. The wind must have cushioned our fall. Are you still tied on? Yes, or I wouldn't be here. Ask the wind, please. Winded. The wind. The wind. Again, Gaudior shook water from his wings. He opened his mouth in his characteristic gesture of drinking, gulped in the cold, clear breeze, his lips pulled back to reveal the dangerous-looking teeth. He closed his eyes, and his long lashes were dark against his skin, which had paled to the color of moonlight. He opened his eyes and spat out a great fountain of water. Thank the galaxies. Where are we? Your own galaxy, your own solar system, your own planet. Your own where? You mean this is the place of the star-watching rock, only it's covered by an ocean? Yes, and the wind says it's midsummer. Charles Wallace looked at the iceberg. It's a good thing it's summer, or we'd be dead from cold. And summer or no, we'll die of cold if we don't get out of the water and onto land, and soon. Gaudior sighed. My wings are still heavy with water, and my legs are tiring. A wave dashed over them. Charles Wallace swallowed a mouthful of salty water and choked, coughing painfully. His lungs ached from the battering of the Ecthroi wind and the cold of the sea. He was desperately sleepy. He thought of travelers lost in a blizzard and how in the end all they wanted was to lie down in the snow and go to sleep, and if they gave in to sleep they would never wake up again. He struggled to keep his eyes open, but it hardly seemed worth the effort. Gaudior's legs moved more and more slowly. When the next wave went over them, the unicorn did not kick back up to the surface. As water and darkness joined to blot out Charles Wallace's consciousness, he heard a ringing in his ears, and through the ringing, a voice calling, "The rune, Chuck! Say it! Say the rune!" But the weight of the icy water bore him down. Ananda's frantic whining roused Meg. "Say it, Charles!" she shouted, sitting bolt upright. Ananda whined again, then gave a sharp bark. "I'm not sure I remember the words." Meg pressed both hands against the dog and called out, "With Ananda in this fateful hour, I place all heaven with its power, and the sun with its brightness, and the snow with its whiteness, and the fire with all the strength it hath, and the lightning with its rapid wrath, and the winds with their swiftness along their path." The wind lifted, and the whitecaps were churned into rolling breakers, and unicorn and boy were raised to the surface of the water, and caught in a great curling comber, and swept along with it across the icy sea, until they were flung onto the white sands of dry land. And that was the end of chapter 7. So it seems like whenever they try to control where they go, it does not end up very good. So make sure you come back tomorrow when we read chapter 8 and figure out what happens next. I'll see you guys then.